Welcome one and all. Step right up and get your tickets for another moment in gaming history. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel, or if you're new here, welcome officially to the channel. This is a series where I go into various different moments in video game history, and today I want to talk about a type of game that gained popularity in the late 90s and has only continued to gain more popularity with various different models. Today I want to talk to you about the MMORPG, where it started, what the first graphical one was, and maybe talk a bit about how far they've come. With that said, let's talk a bit about MMOs. Most of us have played an MMO at this point, in some form or another, be it World of Warcraft, Final Fantasy XIV. Some of you may have gotten as far back as EverQuest, which launched around 1999. Many of us, including myself, probably assume this was one of the very first MMOs, at least in respect of how we know them today. And while that may be close to true, the genre goes back much further than this. So, if you have some time, sit back and grab a snack, because we're going to dive down this rabbit hole with both feet. So, in order to understand where we got to, we should probably talk about the precursor to the graphical MMO. This is most commonly accepted to be a text-based game known as MUD for short. This is short for Multi-User Dungeon, which was released in 1978. This operated much the same way Colossal Cavern or Zork did, by allowing the user to type in keywords or letters for movement. In this way, the user would read the description, interact with objects or items, etc. However, this, unlike the other two examples, was connected to ARPANET. Now, those of you who have visited here before likely are already familiar with ARPANET, but those of you who are new here may want a bit of an explanation. ARPANET is essentially the precursor to what we now know as the Internet, and was originally designed out of frustration. Sounds like my life. You see, at the time, there were seriously limited number of large, powerful research computers. During this time, a mainframe didn't just take up rack space, it would take up an entire room, and a large room at that. It became problematic for many researchers to gain access to these machines because they were so geographically spread out amongst themselves. So a system was designed that would allow terminals to communicate to these servers over long distances to solve this issue. Thus, ARPANET was born. The advantage to having the game on this network is obvious. It allowed players to interact with each other over long distances in the game, making MUD very much like a text-based MMO of sorts. MUDs would evolve over time, gaining graphical interfaces. One of the most popular ones became known as Island of Casimir. Now, we've talked about this a little bit before as being one of the first graphical MMOs, and it is kind of in a sense, but it's not quite a graphical MMO. You see, much of the interface looked a lot like Rogue, with most of the description looking a lot like the original MUDs. However, it was a step, allowing users to see more visually where they were and have a reference as to which directions they had already explored and which ones they had not. But this wasn't quite what we're talking about with an MMO. So let's move a little further ahead in time, all the way to Neverwinter Nights. Neverwinter Nights was released in 1991. This was a step up from Island of Casimir in that the entire game was graphical. The entire interface was designed from the ground up to present a visual world to the player. That's not to say there wasn't dialogue. As in any MMO there always is, but less was left up to description and more was shown to the player, making for a more immersive experience than players had ever seen before. This concept continued to evolve from Neverwinter to EverQuest and onward. Today we have a multitude of MMOs, Old Republic, World of Warcraft, and Final Fantasy XIV, to just name a few, giving us expansive worlds full of NPCs and other players with massive dungeons and raids to explore, all due in large part to a simple text-based game that eventually evolved into what we know today. However, what do you guys think of this one? Do you find this an interesting moment in development in video game history? How many MMOs have you played? Let me know in the comments. Right now though, I'd like to thank you for spending part of your day with me. If I can ask one more favor, please leave this video a like. And if you haven't, consider subscribing. It really helps my channel out. However, until next time, happy gaming.